All right, I'd like to call the joint meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners and the Committee on Infrastructure to order. It's May 8th, 2024. We're meeting in the Aldermatic Chamber in City Hall, and it is 6:07 PM. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Chairman O'Brien is not with us this evening. He expresses his regrets. Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Here.
Alderwoman Clee is not with us this evening, and she expressed her regrets. Commissioner Tollner.
Present.
Commissioner Dahl is not with us this evening, and he has expressed his regrets. Commissioner Craylow
Present.
is present with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members present. Out of 8, you have quorum, Alderman Dowd.
Thank you. All right. First item on the agenda is public comment. I see no one in the audience, so we'll go beyond that. Approval of the minutes.
Actually, Alderman Dowd, we have no minutes for this meeting for approval. I'll have them for the next meeting.
Oh, we don't have the April 10th?
I do not believe we have the April 10th, no.
Okay. Don't need that motion then. General progress update, Tim Lemire, Valley Messenger.
With GPI. And he's ready.
Just reading what it says.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
You're driving, Tim?
Yeah, I'm driving.
Yeah,
You want me?
that's
To?
great.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so let's do a quick update on where some things stand on 9 Riverside. If we just keep going here, where we're at right now with the architectural drawings is I have the 95% construction drawings of, original design scoped items. We are going to have some technical comments on those. However, going any further towards approving construction documents is going to be on hold until we get through some refining the scope of work, which we'll be talking about more this evening. All right, Tim, keep.
Just one question.
Yep.
Jim, have you had a chance to look at those drawings?
Yep.
Okay. I think the other two, Alderman O'Brien and myself, need to take a look at the
Just
drawings.
want to clarify something. Those were drawings I received last night.
Oh, I'm
So
talking about
I think
the,
you're referring to the previous version of
the original
design.
sketch, yeah.
Yep. So
Right.
I have not distributed those yet. I went through and made comments this afternoon, but
Okay.
that's why I asked.
So it would be Mr. Tollner and myself and Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, and Captain Bolton hasn't seen him yet or anybody, so that's,
Is there a huge deviation from the original?
no, it's just far more detailed than what we
Okay.
saw before.
Now, are those considered construction drawings, or?
They are, yes, but they're not, ready for bid, construction drawings.
All right. Because usually we get a chance to review them before they go final. Because
Correct.
construction drawings are the ones that are very expensive to change.
Correct, so it's not a 100% set of construction drawings, but the intention is we're close. But I will distribute those to the parties. The other item of significance we have going on is we have performed a preliminary cost estimate of construction costs, and in that is expected work features that was costed out by contractors, and that is, we're holding a line at approximately 1.6 million of hard construction costs. Right now, there are other items that are not part of that 1.6 million, and that would be some items regarding a backup generator, some electrical work we still need to refine, and some building security adjustments that we're going to be doing. And that also doesn't really incorporate the soft costs.
Okay, the soft costs would be separate, but those, the items you got listed there will be part of the construction documents, right?
That's what we're intending, yeah.
Yeah.
So, So with still some things being refined is the interior security, and what we're doing is having our architect and we currently have some pre-construction services with Martini Northern. We're having them all work together to sort out some of the unique Nashville Police Department needs for the access systems and separating out the former DPW systems so that now all the access is completely separated. So that's a vendor out of Hooksett called Pro Technologies that's getting the pricing in with Martini Northern. With the exterior perimeter, it seems that on the drawings I got last night, most of that has been taken care of, so I'll send that to you, Tom. I have a couple comments on the fencing for the perimeter, but they seem to have followed our directions on gates and some of the other finer points. Okay, one of the things we're going to be talking about this evening a little bit more is I think we started talking about this in March, but the IT closet inside the former DPW space and relocating that. And that's going back to March. The need for that is to get city IT access to that space without having to go through police escort and clearances and whenever they need to get into the former DPW spaces. So we have a cost amendment from the architect to design the IT closet move. We have actually incorporated already the physical work for that into that 1.6 million. So we've kind of accounted for the construction cost already.
So are you using your IT guys, or are you using Nick?
Both.
Okay.
Because the police are still going to use it for their door access and camera and networking information data and backup systems. And then Nick's going to pull his stuff out and go into a new closet that accesses through the Nashville Transit Center system side of the building. So both, everyone's got a part in it. Okay, so the electrical,
I believe there's a question.
oh, sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Commissioner
jump
Dolan?
back, but the exterior,
Yes,
does that incorporate what we discussed earlier this week? The conversation we
Yeah,
discussed
so-
earlier this week?
they have the fencing, I believe detailed on the perimeter, what we were talking about on Monday.
Yep.
The gates, I believe, are correct based on what we were talking about on Monday, and the one fence that they don't quite have correct is that it's an interior fence that would be like a fall protection fence over the retaining wall between where the personal vehicles for the police department park and the old DPW parking lot. So I only found one minor adjustment that needs to be made, but it appears they followed all the other directions we had given them.
Okay.
So I understand you're comfortable with the manual, having to get out and unlock the fence and open it when you have to
Oh,
get
for now.
your
Right.
Bearcat
For
or
now.
your, what?
For now,
For now,
yeah. Yeah.
okay.
We discussed that on Monday too, so the manual is for now. When we reincorporate, redo the whole entire parking lot, and we're looking at the campus as a whole, that's when we'll incorporate, I guess for lack of a better term, a non-manual, right?
Look to electrify.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
As I mentioned the other night, the fire department doesn't like to get out and unlock gates, so.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. The big topic of conversation's been an electrical backup generator for electrical supply of the building. And right now, the building can be serviced with a mobile generator that is diesel. And we had explored for some sustainability measures going to a propane generator, but I believe the size generator we need we only have options of natural gas, which would be a hookup needed, or diesel, which doesn't seem to meet the sustainability goals we set out to accomplish. So the generator, and I have this in changes, but we did have Martini Northern estimate a diesel generator just to get us started on magnitude, and it was about 250,000.
Yeah, I think I reviewed that this afternoon, and I think you'd be pretty smart to use the natural gas generator. You got the access right on River Road, and then you're not gonna be worrying about whether you get enough time on the generator because of power outages or anything else. I mean, I haven't gone over why you want the generator, but I assume if you need it for 72 hours, you probably should have the safest source to drive it. I also thought the lead times that were mentioned were a lot longer. I think we've found that those are coming down significantly.
That would be, I
Wonderful
wouldn't want to
news.
guess on it, but I would
That'd be
hope-
welcome news.
Yes, it would certainly be a positive change.
Yep.
Okay, so the generator was part of this, but we were also exploring energy efficiency study of the building, and we quickly got into a place where we just weren't really within the original scope of the project. We were getting into a territory where it was going to be really a completely separate and additional project added onto it without much tangible benefit to the operational needs of the actual project. So we do have a proposal from the architect to do this study and some design services according to the results of the study. It's about $62,000. I believe myself and the police are recommending that we reject this proposal and achieve our sustainability measures with some what we would call in-scope adjustments to the project. I don't think we're really looking to add a different project on top of the current project, but there are some sustainability measures we can do that are a lot more cost-effective and help meet the goals of the actual scope of work here.
And so to that end, we sat with the Community Development Department and the Sustainability Group and had a lengthy discussion with them about this and wanting to recognize their, the goals and the efforts that the community has set out, but just trying to understand how that fits with this specific project. They concurred and agreed with us, and they made some recommendations as to how we could possibly achieve some better, more efficient sustainability measures within our current scope. And so that's why we feel comfortable asking that you reject the proposal that's before you this evening when we get there.
We do have a change in the package this evening for geotechnical borings. We do have the garage that's being built for the mobile command truck that we do need borings of to make sure our foundation is suitable for intended purpose and life cycle of the building. And I'll have the dollar amounts later, but that's about $10,000 worth of fees for borings for the project site.
So you already have the weights of the two vehicles that are going to be involved?
We have, it's the foundation slab is based on the weights of the vehicles, yes, and then the footers is what really need the borings for. But yes, that's all been into engineering. So getting into some of the details of this with contract actions, we currently have current invoices from the architect Valley Bresinger of $13,900 and $39,200, and what that covers is finishing up the design scope of our original items that we have them under contract for, and then a about a 70% portion of the construction documents of that original scope, which, like I said, I have about 95% complete on the construction documents. And just remember, that's for what they're originally under contract for. That doesn't include new things with designing a generator or the IT closet move. As I mentioned, the energy study, that's a change with the architect that I'm recommending the board reject as for the reasons we spoke about a moment ago. And Amendment 3 with the architect is the design services for the IT closet relocation that we're recommending approval on to have them finish the design on that component.
So is this where you want to take votes on these three items?
We can do that if you'd like now, or we can wait until after the presentation's over, but that would be the next item of business
All right.
on the agenda.
Why don't you finish these?
Okay, go to the next slide, because there are more contract items too. With the architect, some upcoming things that we're gonna hopefully be asking the architect for additional design services is if the joint committee wants to go forward with the backup generator. We do have to take a look at that retaining wall on Riverside and see if that needs a repair now and if we need to actually have that design. Something fairly small is split the water meter between the NTS and the police inside the building. And something that's probably also insignificant is some in-scope sustainability measures that we worked out with community development, like, can the roof handle solar panels? Do we have motion light sensors? Plan to replace lights with LED lights? Some much smaller things that are in scope of our project.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we looked at solar panels on that building before and they wouldn't support the weight.
I believe that is correct. When we had a third-party group come out and look at it, they felt it was, and this is what I need clarity on, I don't know if it was the weight of the roof or if it was the roof wasn't large enough, but their recommendation was to bundle it with a couple other municipal roofs, I believe, but I would need to double check that.
And just to clarify that, it's a good question, because what we're referring to is the new garage.
Oh, the new garage.
So-
That wouldn't be big enough.
So I think what we're thinking is it's probably gonna be strong enough because it's new construction, but it might not be large enough to feasibly be bundled into other roofs for a larger solar project. But community development was hoping to just know that answer, so it can be, at least they know where they're going in the future or where they're not going with panels. Okay, and then, okay, so as I mentioned, we have a current proposal from SW Cole to do all the site borings we need for $9,600. We have Martini Northern, who is on board for pre-construction services only, no contract actions with them at this time. And GPI has two current invoices submitted, one for $2,900 and one for $1,700 for the owner's rep services. And I have this as kind of a duplicate, but for construction manager, right now, we do have Martini Northern just for pre-construction.
So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the presentation. If we move next on the agenda, we have some of the items that were just referenced that we're going to need motions for. I'll note that when I put this packet together, I did not have the second GPI invoice, the May invoice, so that has been added to your packet. That is in front of you, but that will be updated on the website after this meeting. So, Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a motion for approval of the March 9th invoice for $2,783.46. for GPI's OPM services.
So, anybody like to make the motion, accept the invoice? Alderman Toll?
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Tolda? All right, are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we would have that motion, that invoice that I just referenced. Again, this is another GPI invoice. It's dated May 2nd. It is for $1,791.08, and again, it's for OPM services.
So I'll need a motion to accept the May 2nd invoice in the amount of $1,791.08.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Craylew made that motion. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, we would have an invoice that we are seeking payment on. This is for LaValle Bresinger, our architect of record for design services. They have a March 13th invoice for $13,989.
Okay, I'll need a motion to accept and pay the invoice from LaValle Bresinger of May 13th, the amount of $13,989.
I'll make that motion.
Alderman Sullivan made the motion. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I believe we are comfortable recommending the $39,000, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, again, Mr. Chairman, we have a LaValle Bresinger invoice. They're our architects of record for April 12th, design services invoice for $39,298.09.
So I'll need a motion to approve the April 12th invoice from LaValle Bresinger for the amount of $39,298.09. Yes. Alderman Thibodeau? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next we have on our list is the LaValle Bresinger Amendment Number 2 for $61,835. This is for design services for additional energy efficiency scope. We're asking that you reject this proposal at this time.
I'll be happy to make that.
Commissioner Tolan made the motion to reject the LaValle Bresinger Amendment Number 2 in the amount of $61,835. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor of rejecting that, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have, the LaValle Bresinger, what is now on your agenda reading as Amendment Number 3 for $14,300. This is for design services for relocation of the IT closet. We are recommending approval. I'll note that this, when it comes into final form, may be referenced as Amendment Number 2 in the future, but I would ask for your adoption of this amendment.
You can keep it as 3.
You want me
Just
to
say
keep it
2 was rejected,
Okay.
just for clarification in the record. So I'll need a motion to approve LaValle Bresinger Amendment Number 3 in the amount of $14,300 for the IT closet relocation. I'd like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Alderman Thibodeau made the motion. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tim?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And next, we have a proposal that we're asking for your approval of, which is for contracted services with SW Cole, so they can carry out some borings and geotechnical work as we continue with design services for this building. It is in the amount of not to exceed $9,600.
So I'll need a motion to accept the proposal for geotechnical
Yep, geotechnical services,
service from
SW Cole.
Cole proposal for not to exceed $9,600.
I'll make that motion.
Alderman Sullivan made the motion. Any questions? Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. Where in the proposal can I find the amount?
some reason.
I found it.
So that's what page,
It's on page 3.
Page 3,
all the way at the bottom, budget and
Budget and compensation.
1, 2, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
It was on the
Good
last
contract,
page,
they
but it's
really
small
hide those
print.
numbers pretty well.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Chairman, if we could pivot, I want to go over a general financial overview, which I've given everyone a handout here. And I'm going to kick it off with a high-level overview and then hand it over to Tim Lemire, who will talk to you in a little bit more detail about the backup, which is following your cover page, which is the construction costs as we've currently received them. So if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So what you have before you is a draft, and this is a working document that will change over time, but it is an effort to try to give everyone a snapshot of the total project costs to date as we continue to develop this project. And so with that being said, I've broken this out into some high-level categories that you typically see in a construction project budget. And then, we can drill down into more detail as necessary in the individual rows or columns as you see. So, there were no building acquisition costs. There's no financing costs per se, because those costs would be carried somewhere else in the city's operating budget. Again, similar with legal, that would be carried somewhere else in the city's operating budget. So we don't need to carry for those items in this project. Insurance is handled a couple different ways. We typically in Nashua wrap the builder's insurance into the guaranteed maximum price. It can be handled outside of the guaranteed maximum price, but just by a matter of what seems to be getting us a better price today as we go out and test the market. It seems as though right now, based on the advice of our risk department, that we ask that this insurance be covered by the contractor within their GMP. So that's what we're doing currently right now. Then we have some pre-design services monies that need to be spent as we go through designing the project to put us in a place where we can actually go to construction. Right now, we're seeing that coming in just under $100,000. Next is one of your biggest drivers of cost, and that is your architectural and engineering fees. We have a budget right now of about $250,000. We do not have that all under contract at this time. We're probably somewhere around 150 under contract right now, and we believe with other changes that we're seeing relative to some of the items we've discussed this evening, we're going to need to increase that. And so we're anticipating that budget will go up to, what we're carrying here, somewhere around $250,000. Next, you have some additional services that are going to be necessary to continue this project along the way. We're carrying that, again, just over $100,000. That would be your OPM services, which that's Tim Lemire here this evening, or based on the HVAC work that we're doing, we're suggesting that we have a commissioning agent help us balance the system at the end of the project. I don't think we're going to be spending $30,000 at the end of the day. I think it's going to come in much less than that, but nonetheless, at this point in time, we want to be conservative in our budgeting, so we're carrying $30,000. Construction costs, this would be the GMP when we get to that point in the project. We're carrying about $2.3 million at this time. You'll see that the numbers that are backing this up don't get us there just yet now, but again, we're anticipating some additional scope to be added to this project, and so we're carrying that at around 2.3 right now. Testing, we know we're going to need to do testing both in the ground and then the building when the time comes, so we're carrying about $60,000. We are not carrying anything for capital equipment for FF&E, miscellaneous, or other impacts at this time. We are carrying some small money for utility consumption type charges. This puts us at around about a $3 million project, though that's not counting our contingency. When you count contingency at this time, we're projecting a total project cost of about $3.5 million. Again, that's just where we're at today. We will see this change over time as it gets more refined. But I wanted to give everyone just a snapshot as to where we are at this point relative to design. We anticipate getting the construction documents and costs costed out again one more time before we go into the GMP phase of the project. And so, that's probably a number that you're gonna see change next time when you see this overall project budget before you. Before we continue on, Mr. Chairman, happy to take any questions if there are.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. Director Cummings, I just had a few questions more to the invoices that we approved, so I know what bucket it comes out of, if you don't mind. So GPI, what category is that? Pre-design services?
So GPI would be, and I kind of spelled that out a little bit. You'll see I left that out. That would be your OPM. So your OPM, which is $75,000, that would be your additional design or professional services, category number 7.
Oh,
And I should say, for the record, we do not have GPI, Tim Lemire, under contract for $75,000 at the moment. We only have him under contract for about $50,000.
okay.
But I anticipate we may need some additional services from him, and so I wanted to carry, again, being conservative at this time, a little more than what we have. So that's how this kind of works.
Okay, follow-up, please.
Follow-up?
And the architect goes under architectural and engineering fee, I would assume?
Correct, Alderman Sullivan. And so in this particular project, a lot of the subs, and I would even venture to say all of the subs when it comes to design, are directly contracted with Lavelli Bresinger, and we are contracted with Lavelli Bresinger. So this includes mechanical, plumbing, electrical, structural, civil, any type of design services that we may need, we would go through Lavelli Bresinger, and Lavelli Bresinger has subs to them.
Okay, one more, please.
Follow-up?
Could you please explain the difference between owner's contingency and estimating contingency?
Yep, sure. So I'm super conservative when it comes to budgeting these projects, especially at this point in time. We typically always carry an owner's contingency based off of what we're projecting the construction costs to be, and you'll kind of see that we're a little heavy on that at this point in time. But then in addition to that, I have an estimating contingency, or another way you could call it is often referred to as an architectural contingency. And this is something that the architectural design team asks for in a project because they're not sure what they're really designing yet. And so when they're quoting us, they are quoting us based off of what we believe we need. And then as we go through the project, they hear about all these other concerns. And so they didn't capture that up front when they costed the project. So they often ask for, and I termed it an estimating contingency, but again, you could call it an architectural contingency. And that would be a number that you would reduce along the way during design now before you get into construction, and you would increase your construction budget.
So if I could just put it into what I think I heard, which is the estimating contingency is the costs, or you're setting aside money before construction starts for design changes, and then the owner's contingency is money set aside while you're in construction to say, okay, we didn't budget for that, we need to, fix a wall or whatever, and that comes out of that.
And that's exactly right. And that, and again, an owner's construction contingency is also separate from the contractor's contingency.
Okay.
So you'll see, oftentimes, the contractor will have a contingency budget that they will control.
Okay,
And they make decisions whether they want to tap into it. They often, here in Nashua, they have to ask our permission to do that, but oftentimes in other municipalities or other projects, they can kind of do it on their own. We're super conservative when it comes to this, so that we often want to know if they're going to be dipping into their contingency, but they have no access to the owner's contingency.
will that be in the GMP?
The contractor's
Yeah.
contingency is in the GMP.
Okay,
And then, and I'll give a real life example of how this may play out, and it goes to a conversation that I'm going to have in a few minutes with you all relative to this project. So you'll see that we have an estimating contingency of about 200,000 roughly. When we first started this project, we weren't necessarily anticipating maybe some of the parking lot changes that were going to be necessary in terms of design. As we've started to go through this project, I started hearing about some of this, and I built this budget that you're seeing. I actually built this budget about a year and a half ago, anticipating some of this. And so what I anticipate will happen sometime in the next couple months is a conversation where we were going to be looking at redesigning the 9 Riverside parking lot. And I would anticipate us reducing the estimated contingency at that time to develop some designs for the 9 Riverside parking lot, if that's the pleasure of the group, which would be something that you'd have ready to go if and when you ever wanted to do. Wouldn't necessarily be part of the construction project, but it's at least preparing the police department for success later on.
okay.
Just a couple things. Contingency won't be spent unless it comes back before this group, or the construction committee, which,
Yep.
but it probably have to come back before this group. And it's very similar to what we have in the school projects. If as we go through construction, we find something that, has to be fixed, then the construction manager will probably put in a PCO to make the change because they didn't anticipate this thing. And that change requires some design, so that comes out of will be the contingency out of the architect. And owner's contingency would be, we decided we want to do an electric gate. They have to come back here and ask for it, but we'd have the money in contingency. Do I think the contingency is a little high for this project? Yes, because Tim is very, very conservative. But with the age of this building, I would say go ahead and keep that at the moment. But at the end of the project, there may be money left, hopefully. Yes, Commissioner Tolman.
Yeah, so I just have a couple questions. I want to double back just quickly, just to, on the roof regarding the solar panels. I think we already know, and I don't remember the conversation where we found this out, that the roof would not support solar panels because it's a prefab building.
Okay.
The engineering building, 9 Riverside, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they were talking about putting it on the new building that's gonna house the Bearcat and the emergency vehicle. So they would construct that in order to hold the weight. It's not building doesn't exist yet.
So we're going to have discussions whether it's financially worthwhile or feasible to do
Well,
that.
if we put solar on that, I think we do this public-private partnership that we do like on the schools. It doesn't cost the city anything. You make money. It's a long story, I don't want to get into it tonight, but it wouldn't cost anything to the
I
project.
just don't think that building's going to be big enough to warrant the cost of, but we can take that down the road. But
Yeah.
the building itself, 9 Riverside,
No.
no solar panels
No.
on that. Okay. And then, I know this is insignificant, but when you talk about the water utility split, I'm not aware of the police department using a lot of water to begin with. So I don't think we need to spend a lot of time thinking about how much it's going to cost to split, So those are some of the things I think we should look at as far
Yeah,
as.
the first step of that was just to see if it's fairly inexpensive with Penachuk to do it, because we know the meter is in the building accessible.
Yeah.
And then seeing what that would cost would be where
Okay.
we would submit that information to Karen to see if that is, makes sense.
If it's worth a while. Secondly, this would be to your favor, in the sense that I'm sensitive to the fact that I understand how you're gonna use this building.
Right.
And to your point, you're not using a lot of water, but right
Right.
now you only get one water bill.
Right.
And I don't know if that's necessarily fair to you all as limited users of that side of the building.
Right.
When you have another, if you will, occupant on the other side of the building where it's more daily used.
Right, yeah.
And so, so we just felt it was, we're trying to be good stewards for you
Okay,
all.
all right,
So
fine.
we wanted to just
Yeah.
investigate it.
Okay, fine, okay.
Karen?
Yes, Commissioner, that, we had addressed that.
Yeah, you want to get closer to the mic.
We had discussed looking into it, but not if it was going to be a large
Right.
cost.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And then my bigger question is, originally, the cost of doing all this was about 1.5 million or so? So when I'm looking at that 3.5 million, not on the bottom, that's quite a bit of a variance as far as, and I understand you want to provide with some contingencies and stuff like that, but,
And I think this is where sometimes we get a little tricked up, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Sometimes we speak in terms of generalities, and when we say 1.5, maybe we're only referring to just the hard construction cost at that time. And we weren't talking about all the other incidental costs along the way that need to be added into a total project cost figure. I think, I always anticipated this project being somewhere around 2.5 to 3.5 million, call it 3 million. And we're, depending on what we actually do for the hard construction costs, that's kind of where this is shaping up, at least at this time.
Does that 3.5 million include soft costs? I haven't heard you talk extensively about the soft costs itemization.
It does, Mr. Chairman. So we have the soft costs pretty much known at this time. There's probably some more testing that's going to need to be done. That would be more soft costs that we're going to need to vet out a little bit more. A concern that I have is, and I haven't had a conversation yet with our building department, but to understand what third-party inspections may be necessary that we're going to need to carry. But I think we have ample budget to be able to cover those costs if we're going to need to.
So, one soft copy, you're not intending to put any new equipment in the building? Furniture, desks, chairs,
not,
whiteboards?
walnut desks, no.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, we vetted that through. I don't believe there's any FF&E, furniture, fixtures, equipment, and/or other costs, capital equipment costs necessary. Maybe along the way, some janitorial items will end up over there that we'll have to carry for, but that would be something less than $10,000.
I just want to be careful. I don't want to ask for a bond that's exorbitant where we're not going to come anywhere near what we actually need for the project. We appreciate the contribution on the project, but we want to make sure we stay as lean as we possibly can.
So
Because
right,
we do have a parking lot that down the road, we want to make sure we.
yeah, right now in the capital improvements program, CIC committee, and the ad hoc committee, it's been 3.5 million.
That's what we've been carrying.
Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. So again, back to your master project budget worksheet, Director Cummings. Off of Commissioner Tolner's question, page 3 outlines budget proposal summary of just over 1.5 million. And then if I look at construction cost and markups, that 1.5 million is in that 2.325 million, correct?
Correct.
Can you explain what I mean, I know what a markup is, but what's in there?
So that could be the cost for the insurance. That could be the fee for the construction manager.
Okay,
It's, ancillary costs that would go into the construction project.
okay,
But that's not the difference of the amount we're talking about.
Oh, no, the amount we're talking about, we first estimated this at 1.5, and I understand we're carrying 2.3, but there's a lot of additional scope. The generator in and of itself is gonna be a $300,000 cost right there. That's not part of the 1.5 that you're looking at right now. That's gonna put you at 1.8 right there. And then there's other items along the way, but that's just, you know, a good example of how this is going to evolve along the way.
Okay. All right.
Yes, Alderman Thibodeau?
While talking about the money, I believe you'd mentioned, just so I understand the wording properly, you had mentioned max threshold, so is that like I believe that's the word you used? Just so I understand what that means.
Yep, it's called a guaranteed maximum price, and I'll let Alderman Dowd explain what a GMP is.
Okay. When we have a construction manager, we give them the drawings, and they then work with their vendors, and they price out the cost. Like in the middle school, it was like pages of items. And they figure out what it's going to cost to build the design that was given to them. And then they give us a guaranteed maximum price, which says they will not exceed that unless we tell them to do something that's not on the original plans, in which case they'd have to give us a prospective change order, which would have to be approved by this committee to add that to the project. Now, typically, those are items that still fall within what was bonded, so it's not additional bonding money, but it's probably comes out of contingency. But the guaranteed maximum price, they won't exceed that. And again, typically when we're, at least the construction companies I've been working with, in the end, they come under the guaranteed maximum price and we get that money back. But we don't pay them.
So it's equivalent to a not to exceed
Right.
threshold.
Right.
And that, at the moment, that is the 3
No,
million?
no.
So what is that number now?
That number now, so that's a tough question to answer, because I think if Martini Northern was here, they would say would never be this 1.5 million that you'd see on page, I guess that's page 3, that's their summary proposal. But in theory, it would be, on the top page, row 8, it would be your construction costs. When it's all finalized, we will put the GMP number into the construction costs. And for this conversation, I'm gonna say it's somewhere around 2.3 million.
And I am presuming, based on discussions with Director Cummings, that in this instance, in this project, when we get the guaranteed maximum price, we'll be able to go in with a bond that's pretty nailed to the actual cost. In school projects in the past, and I think we're gonna try and change that in the future, is that we go in and get a bond, and then we pay the architect and the construction managers out of that pricing, out of that bond. And I think in this case, the architect and the construction estimates are coming out of a different pool of money.
Correct.
So, and I don't think that's part of the 3.5 million. We're not paying them back.
I haven't had that conversation yet with CFO Griffin, but yes, I don't think we'll necessarily be paying that back.
Okay, so when we get the guaranteed maximum price, we'll have a pretty solid estimate of what the bond cost would be. And that bond price can't be exceeded without coming back to the full board of aldermen to increase the amount of bond money. But I was gonna say we rarely do that, but we just did it once, so I'm not gonna, but that was for other circumstances, so.
To follow on to what Alderman Dowd is saying is that, you know, one of the differentials is we're gonna be very far along in the design. So we should have strong confidence in the construction number with this project. Can I hand it over to Tim Lemire now so he can talk a little bit about the construction numbers as they came into us on this first costing exercise?
Yes, Tim?
Do you have another Martini or?
Oh, yeah,
Mark copy?
here, take it.
So I'm on the third page. If everyone can see, it's the chart from Martini Northern, looks like this. So They did this costing at about the 50% design submission, so that's another reason why we're looking at this 1.5, 1.6 million, and we know that there are going to be some changes between what I got last night from a design set of drawings and what we have for additions that aren't enumerated here in this chart. So up top is just some, basic construction fees, but then when we get down to things like demolition, we have about $100,000 in concrete work. That's mostly going to be for the new garage slab and foundation construction. $70,000 in the metal steel structure, and we should have, we do have carpentry and mill carpentry for the we went for timber framing for the roof on a small structure like that. It's a lot more cost effective than all steel. And then the two big parts of this project are the door frames and hardware, and that number's going to change a little bit to 206,000. That's going to change a little bit as we get a little further with our security outfitter, Pro Technologies, and determining what we need to do for card access. We can reuse some of the equipment. Some of the equipment's got to be new. We do need some new wiring. And the other big ticket item is going to be the earthwork, and the component of that is expensive is getting the mobile command truck in the Bearcat or the bomb truck, whatever the second truck that, I think the heaviest one is going to be the bomb truck. Getting those physically back to where the new garage is going to be and connecting into the old DPW parking lot from the police campus.
Just a question, the bomb truck, or are you going to put the new emergency vehicle in there? The command headquarters.
The Count Bolton National Police, the intent is to put in the new mobile command and the bomb truck.
Yeah, and the bomb truck, not the Bearcat.
That's correct.
That's going on.
Bearcat's currently situated in one of the
Okay.
garage bays
All right.
behind our booking area.
And I think with the mobile command truck is the longest of the
Yes.
police vehicles, so with building the garage that long, I think the bomb truck is the next longest vehicle that will fit the garage. Where I don't think the Bearcat's quite that long.
Commissioner Tolner?
So Tim, you're probably going to tell us what comes under general conditions, but what's the definition of general conditions there on the bottom, the 132,000?
General conditions typically with these contractors covers their mobilization and overhead. So usually contractors that are going to, subcontractors that are going to bid the individual components of the work are going to bid with their, their profit loaded into their work items, but they're also going to ask for, this is what it cost me to show up, and this is what it cost me for my, overhead and management. So usually at this stage, and I can ask Martini Northern, but usually that's built in as a percent of the fees above it, until they get real hard quotes.
So
Okay.
these estimates are Martini and Northern's estimates based on their history, right? They're I don't want to call them educated guesses at this point, right? Because in the end, if we have a construction manager, he's going to go out to his vendors and get bids and have a much more realistic number based on current facts and costs than this. So this is just an estimate, not something going towards a guaranteed maximum price.
Right.
Could be similar, could be a little higher, could be a little lower, right?
Yes, exactly. And just to follow on, it's things like temporary toilets if they're necessary, trailer,
I was just going to say.
trailer,
Right.
copier, printer,
Yeah.
whatever.
Person
Okay.
on site.
Person on site, yeah,
Right,
whatever it may be.
okay.
And so, by the way, when we get a guaranteed maximum price on schools, as I think I mentioned before, they go out and get at least 3 competitive bids on everything, and they picked the most qualified lowest bidder. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, as Alderman Sullivan may know, it doesn't have to be the lowest bidder, because they may exclude things that we need, and they didn't put them in their bid, so they get excluded from the process. But, and typically, in most cases, I found that if there's, like in the McCarthy School, there's probably like 4,000 or 5,000 items that got a bid out, and they come back green, which means they're less than they originally estimated. So that's how we end up with extra funds in the school system. And if it's over, they come back red, but the only one that I remember coming back red was the landscaping.
Good.
Okay, if there's no more questions on that sheet, on the next sheet is a much smaller chart, and that is, I had asked Martini Northern to take a preliminary look at what a generator might cost, and we already know we need probably a couple changes, because they pointed out a diesel generator with 1 day of fuel in a tank, and we're looking for natural gas, but about the same size. So this is separate from the previous sheet. It's not in that 1.6 or 1.5 million, but this is without engineering, and just a general idea of what that generator, the neighborhood, what we're thinking for the generator. I'm kind of estimating a little bit higher based on having, I don't think the building currently has a natural gas hookup. I think the hookup goes to the NTS garage, but not 9 Riverside, 9 or 11.
Yeah,
So
I don't think-
a little bit more in there.
It runs right by, but I don't believe it goes in.
You have natural gas, is the new HVAC system natural gas in your main building?
I'm not sure.
It's gotta run on something.
I don't know, but I do have a question on this. Isn't this a component of a number of construction projects where the time frame of when you order this particular item, a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, a few times, the building is actually done while they're waiting for a generator to be hooked up to the building. Isn't that right? So
Yes.
this is probably something that we want to make a decision on early in the project, so it's delivered by the time we're finished. So I think there's a couple buildings in Nashua complexes that they couldn't open them because they were waiting for this particular item in order to get occupancy, correct?
Ones that you're very familiar with.
Well, a little familiar with, but I know it
Yes.
causes a headache, though. That's
Yes,
all.
it is. Commissioner Tolman, you're absolutely correct. And it's something that's, I think, in the forefront of my mind on this particular project.
But we're thinking gas, right?
Natural gas,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
So the reason I was asking if you had natural gas in your original building is, otherwise you're gonna have like, you'll have to hire somebody like Liberty to connect to the main in the, on Riverside Drive. Bring it up to the site of the generator.
But we could look at this very relatively quickly and decide gas or whatever it's gonna be, and then order it so it's ready. Time, that's all.
If I may.
Yes.
Yes, just we would need a bond authorized at that point
Oh, all right, yeah.
to have a bona fide source of funds. But yes, that's my plan to get this ordered as quickly as possible.
The last thing-
Have we made the decision yet as to going out for bids for general contractor? That came up the other night.
I was going to bring that up at
the
the end of the conversation in just a few moments.
All right, good.
Yep, and the last thing under the generator, the construction manager pointed out a potential adjustment to the design, which would issue a $5,000 credit, and that would have to be something I vet with the architect to see if its engineering agrees that it's a technical change that could save $5,000, or if our architect does not. But sometimes those turn out to be great ideas with a little bit of cost savings, and sometimes there's an engineering reason it's not what we want. So, yeah, I think that's it.
Now,
So, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple items, if we are moving on to Agenda 8, old or miscellaneous business items. I have two items I want to put out there for the record this evening. First is an issue that was brought to my attention earlier this week, and that is going out for an RFQ for construction management services. Originally, my intention was to piggyback off of the Arlington Street Community Center's contract. We have a construction manager out there, and utilizing a provision within our city ordinances to allow us to use for the same business terms, the same contract. But I'm pivoting the thought process at this point in time, and I think we'll go out for an RFQ for the construction manager, if that's the pleasure of the group. It just means, I can do this in parallel. I'll do it in tandem with everything that's going on, so it wouldn't add, any significant delay to the project. But it's just an effort that I'm gonna have to undertake sooner rather than later, and I'd be happy to do that. But probably start that in the next couple of weeks or so, and that would then bring you to a place where you could have a contract to approve for construction management services. That would be the group that would provide the GMP and do the actual construction oversight and management that we're talking about this evening. Technically, right now, we only have Martini Northern under contract for what's called pre-construction services, where they're providing their advice and counsel and their cost estimating services. They're under contract for $25,000 with us right now. So anyway, that's going to be my plan moving forward, unless I hear an objection from the group. But happy to do that.
it was my understanding the police commissioners wanted to go out with competitive bids. Mr. Tolman?
Yeah, so just for the record, we appreciate the opportunity to piggyback on what you have in place, but having discussions on the police commission, we thought it was important to put this out to bid, the construction manager and everything after that. So I want to reiterate what I've sent to you earlier. We appreciate the opportunity and your work on this. We're just a little more comfortable with putting it out to bid and see what we get. So at the end of the day, if it comes in and it's Martini Northern, then great. We just, wanted to make sure that we were open and transparent throughout our process, because
Since we put an RFP, there's no cost because we don't pay people to bid it.
And I just want to clarify, so I know we're using the word bid right now,
Right.
but we're technically, it's
Correct.
going to be an RFQ. or
RFQ, correct.
Okay.
Right. But we appreciate that. We just wanted a little more, not a little more transparency in the process as we move forward, and that way we're not in a position where we have to respond to.
Understood.
Okay.
The second item that I wanted to bring to y'all's attention is the police commissioners at their February 20th, 2024 meeting adopted the 9 Riverside converting the existing office building into a police training facility plan. And just for a matter of good housekeeping, I'm going to ask that this communication get accepted and placed on file. More than anything else, just for record-keeping purposes, and I wanted to just get that. I would have brought this up at the last meeting, but we can't, it got canceled, so I'm just gonna ask that this get adopted for the record.
If there's no objections, I'll accept the communication and place it on file.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
a communication of February 21st from Chief Rourke.
Right.
Okay.
And that's all I have this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you.
So, excuse me, we want to approve it, right? We have to vote to approve the communication? You don't have to?
I said if there's no objection, so
Oh. It's a little easier now than, okay.
you were on a long time ago.
All right.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thanks. In that memo that we just approved, or didn't object to, that construction would start in the spring or summer of this year. Now that we're getting closer timeline on it? When do we think we could start? When do you think it would be done?
So it's my understanding it would be less than a one-year project. But ideally the fall, if we can get a bond authorized I say this spring because I consider us still in the spring, but if we can do it during this budget season, if we can get a bond authorized, say before the start of the summer, and then that would be able to put us in a place to get the contracts all done through the summer. I'd like, and ideally, to issue a notice to proceed sometime in a August, September, probably more like a September timeframe. And then I would say it's a solid 8 to 10 month construction project.
Okay.
So you're adding something to my bond agendas between now and the 1st of July?
If it's the pleasure of this group, I would like to get the 3.5 million. There's a generator we need to order. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you didn't mention the time frame you're going to give the people to respond when you put out your RFQ?
So relative to the RFQ for the construction manager, I'm gonna put that out for a 2-3 week response time.
So two things. In order for them to bid on an RFQ for this project, they're going to need a set of the construction drawings.
We will provide the draft set that we have.
Okay, once we hire them, then we need the final drawings because they're not going to do a guaranteed maximum price till they have the exact final drawings.
And that's a good question. I don't know when we're gonna get the exact final drawings, but we're probably on a June, July trajectory before we're actually gonna have final designs done, actually. And so a GMP probably wouldn't be August, is my guess. And that's,
And you're trying to do a bond before we have a guaranteed maximum price?
well, we'll probably have this estimated with quotes based off of the design. Well, at least be a design.
Tight scheduling.
We can handle it.
Any other questions coming before the committee? Do I hear a motion? Alderman
I'd
Sullivan.
like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We return at 7:14.